Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something that, well, shapes our daily lives in countless ways, often without us even realizing it.
Uh-huh.
Unwritten rules.
Exactly. Those societal norms,
Hmm.
expectations, they're not written down anywhere official.
Nope. But we all seem to pick up on them, sometimes the hard way.
Yeah, definitely. So to really get a handle on this, we've gathered some, different kinds of sources. We'll be looking at the Cambridge Dictionary's take first.
Right, their definition and examples of unwritten rule that gives us the sort of broad overview, yeah.
Precisely. And then,
Then we'll dig into a BuzzFeed article. It compiled 15 unspoken rules of life from Reddit.
okay, so that's more the ground level view, how these things actually play out day to day.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is basically to explore what these unwritten rules are, how they influence, what we do, how we interact.
And maybe why understanding them can be, well, pretty helpful for navigating the social world a bit more effectively.
Okay, so let's lay some groundwork. Cambridge Dictionary. Pretty straightforward.
Right. Unwritten means not in written form. Simple enough.
And a rule.
An accepted principle or instruction. How things should be done, essentially.
So put them together.
And you get the core idea, informal guidelines,
Yeah.
socially accepted, for how to behave.
Right. And the dictionary notes it's a collocation.
Which just means those words, unwritten and rule, get used together a lot. It tells you it's a pretty well-established concept in the language.
Okay, so Cambridge gives a really interesting mix of examples. Let's look at some of those, how they show up in different places.
Good idea. Some are for more formal settings, right? Like Parliament?
Yeah, the Hansard Archive, it mentions an unwritten rule about timing closure motions.
Which is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even in a place with, like, tons of official rules,
Uh-huh.
there are still these unspoken understandings about how things actually work.
So why have those in places like Parliament, I mean? What's the point if everything else is written down?
That's a great question. I think often they act as a kind of flexible layer on top of the formal stuff.
Flexible how?
Well, they might make things run smoother day to day or handle situations the written rules don't quite cover. Or maybe they just reflect, tradition or who holds the real power.
Okay, that makes sense. The dictionary also had that example about government stuff. Planning permission.
On greenfield sites, yeah. And how a previous government supposedly abandoned that rule.
Right. Which highlights that these things aren't fixed, are they?
Not at all. They can change, people can challenge them, they can even just fade away.
And another point was that some are not universally accepted.
Yeah, which is crucial. It's not like one size fits all. These norms can really differ between groups or, situations.
Definitely. And some examples really show how they reflect social values, maybe older ones.
Like that stark one about public administration.
Oh, yeah, the prospect of hanging, concentrating the mind. Pretty grim.
It is grim, but it shows how deeply held beliefs about, say, consequences can create these unspoken expectations in how institutions function.
Then there was that more observational one about technology.
Right, the idea that you get this burst of technological acceleration and then things kind of grind to a halt.
Yeah, that feels less like a behavioral rule and more like, I don't know, an observation that's become an expectation.
Exactly. It shows these unwritten rules can also be about our shared understanding, or maybe assumptions, about how the world itself works.
Okay, so moving on from the dictionary examples, Wikipedia had a whole bunch too, right? Even more diverse.
Yeah, quite a mix, like an unwritten rule that appointed foreign ministers tend to follow.
Suggest norms within specific jobs, specific communities.
Right. And then the one about commentators keeping their politics out of it.
Huh. Yeah, well, maybe that's more of an ideal unwritten rule these days.
Perhaps. But it touched on expectations of, like, objectivity in certain roles.
Wikipedia also had that one. In some circles, anyone over 30 was old.
Which really shows how arbitrary these can be, doesn't it? Tied to specific times, specific cultures.
Totally. And who knew about ship captains and white peak caps?
Right. Seems like maybe tradition just sort of hardened into an expectation, appearance, authority, that kind of thing.
Okay, what else? There were quite a few.
Well, there was one about prisoners serving at least half their sentence.
Reflecting maybe societal ideas about punishment, justice.
Seems likely. Then shifting to, like, really specific subcultures. Footbag circles.
Oh yeah, the no apology rule for dropping the bag.
It's a fascinating little window, isn't it, into the norms of just one hobby group. Why do you think rules like that develop? So specific.
Maybe it's about creating a certain vibe. Like more relaxed, less pressure, or just, a shared thing that makes you part of the group.
Could be. Wikipedia also listed one about not messing with the bloodline of the sage.
Okay, that sounds way more serious. Rooted in, like, deep cultural beliefs. Respect lineage, something like that.
Seems so. And then sports came up a few times.
Yeah.
American football.
The quarterback kneel, yeah. Don't rush the passer then.
Which is a clear case of sportsmanship, right? Player safety becoming this expected thing, even if it's not technically rule number 3, subsection B.
It's about, like, fair play, a deeper understanding.
Exactly. And even, apparently, the physical environment can have these.
The stadium height and the pine trees?
Yeah. Almost like an aesthetic rule for a specific place.
Weird. And then rules about keeping top teams in the top division.
Yeah. Highlighting maybe competitive balance or fan expectations or maybe even money.
Lots of layers there. Succession rules, too.
Right. Bypassing the elder son being seen as unfair. That reflects, older social structures.
And on the flip side, a rule allowing someone who figures out a trick to use it.
Yeah, suggests a kind of acceptance of cleverness maybe in a competitive space.
Okay, nearly there with the Wikipedia ones. Hockey.
Pulling the star goalie at the right time. A strategic norm.
And that really strange one. The wounded boy.
Inflicting identical wounds to fix a friendship. Yeah, that one's striking.
Wow. Shows how deep and sometimes, frankly, bizarre these rules can be, depending on the culture.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's shift gears now. Look at the everyday stuff in that BuzzFeed piece.
Right, the 15 unspoken rules of life from Reddit. These feel much more like the nuts and bolts of just getting along with people day to day.
Totally agree. Number 1 is a classic.
The hallway standers. Don't block the path by talking across it. Stand on the same side.
It's just basic spatial awareness, isn't it? Consideration.
Totally. Okay, number 2.
The just got home rule. Don't immediately hit someone walking in the door with demands or reminders.
Let them take their shoes off first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that one. Why is that one so key for, like, household peace?
Well, I think it's about respecting that shift, from being out there to being in here at home.
People need a second to just breathe, switch gears.
Exactly. A little buffer. Number 3.
Your bad day doesn't mean you have to ruin other people's day.
And they had that suggestion of dividing bad days into quarters.
Yeah, like trying to contain it. It's a good reminder that your mood affects everyone around you.
Definitely. Number 4, back to public spaces.
Sidewalks. Don't walk side by side and block faster walkers. Be mindful.
Simple courtesy. Rule 5 is beautifully short.
If you open something, close it.
Yes. Shared responsibility. Don't leave messes, basically.
Number 6, elevator etiquette. And buses, trains.
Let people off before you try to get on. Seems obvious, but...
Apparently needs saying. Basic flow, respecting space. Number 7 is more psychological.
Yeah, the idea that you remember your embarrassing moments way more than anyone else does.
That's actually quite comforting, isn't it? We often blow things out of proportion in our own heads.
Very true. Rule 8 is about learning.
Most of our learning comes about through making painful mistakes.
An unspoken truth, really. It's okay not to be perfect. That's how you grow.
Number 9, super important social skill.
Reading the room. Massively underrated, they say.
Totally agree. Knowing when to change the subject or when someone's just not into the conversation.
Or when someone just needs a bit of space. It's key for things not getting awkward.
Absolutely. 10 is the classic airplane analogy.
Secure your own oxygen mask first. Prioritize your own well-being so you can help others. Self-care isn't selfish.
Right. 11 is very practical.
Wipe down the sink.
Yeah.
Especially if you share a bathroom or kitchen. Just basic tidiness, consideration.
Please, yes. 12 is a modern essential.
Headphones in public. The article was quite emphatic, wasn't it?
Yeah. Basically, don't inflict your music or videos on everyone else. Respecting auditory space.
Exactly. 13, workplace basics.
Greet your coworkers when you arrive. Just say hello.
Basic manners, they'll call it. Small thing, but it helps build a nicer atmosphere, maybe.
Seems reasonable. 14 is about driving or riding.
Those little acknowledgments. The wave when someone lets you merge.
Or flashing lights for hazards, or the helmet pat for bikers.
Little signals that build a tiny bit of community, even on the road.
And finally, number 15, a good one for responsibility.
Your lack of preparation does not equal someone else's emergency.
Oof. Yeah. Don't make your poor planning someone else's urgent problem. Be proactive.
So looking at all of this, the dictionary stuff, Wikipedia, the Reddit list, What's the common thread?
Well, it really seems to boil down to making social interactions work more smoothly, doesn't it?
And showing consideration for other people, whether it's in Parliament or just waiting for the bus.
Yeah, these rules, they pop up everywhere. Formal settings, professional life, just everyday casual stuff.
And even though they're not written down, they clearly have weight. You know,
Yeah.
break one, even accidentally.
And things can get awkward. Or worse, you might get judged or people get annoyed.
So being aware of them, understanding them,
Mm.
it really does give you a kind of shortcut, maybe, to navigating things better.
With more awareness, more empathy,
Mhm.
understanding those unspoken expectations that kind of hold things together.
Right. So to sort of wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
unwritten rules, they're these powerful, often invisible forces shaping how we act and what we expect from each other.
Yeah. And they exist in just about every corner of life, from big institutions right down to, wiping down the sink.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, the listener. Think about an unwritten rule in your own life.
Yeah, something in your family, maybe, or at work, or just in your town, something that seems totally obvious, but nobody ever actually says it.
Ask yourself,
Mm-hmm.
what are the benefits of that rule staying unwritten? Why does it work that way?
But also, are there any downsides? Any problems caused because it's not explicit?
And just imagine, how would things change if that obvious rule suddenly got written down, formalized? Would it be better, worse, just different? Something to think about?